member of WildGamesProductions.com and D20Radio.com.
Roll for initiative.
Welcome back, folks, to the Roll for Initiative podcast, issue number 48. I'm sitting in. DM Vince is one of your hosts, along with DM Jason.
Howdy.
DM Nick.
Hi, how are you?
And me again. No, I'm kidding. And we're here together, the three.
Little bits of schizophrenia.
That's right. Hello, I'm somebody else. And we have a great show for you tonight, and we're back on track, issue number 48. We have some fun, exciting topics to talk about, so we're going to throw it over to Nick. No, I'm kidding.
What?
And Nick's like, what? Oh.
Sure, I'm ready. Let's do this.
What you going to do, brother? So, Jason, you were gathering some information I saw today. I thought maybe you wanted to put that out on the podcast to help out for the project you were doing.
Yeah, no, that's not for public consumption. Sorry.
Oh, well, my bad.
No, that's okay. We didn't say anything, so it's all right.
Yeah, so then we'll just head into our first segment of the night then.
Typical. Of all the evil creatures in the world, I'd like to find one with table manners.
What, are you kidding me? I spent years cultivating the worst table manners on the planet.
Table manners.
Okay, in table manners, this week we're going to be coming around something I think kind of interesting I haven't really done with at all, but martial arts fighting in AD&D. And just a little bit about the rules that come out of Oriental Adventures if you want to use them, and kind of do a little bit of a round table here if you've used them or if you haven't, if you plan on using them. So
let's start with a primer because I have never used them. I don't know anything about them.
Well, I haven't used them myself, but I have the Oriental Adventures book, and I've read through them, and I'm actually kind of surprised that it's really not that hard to use.
No, it's
when
not.
you go in,
yeah, go ahead, Nick.
Just what?
Go.
Okay. But it's on page 101 to 106 in the Oriental's Adventures book. Covers the idea behind martial arts, and it really starts with the philosophy behind it and the history of martial arts in Oriental culture and why they were developed. Part of it getting into religious beliefs and philosophy, and also out of necessity. And there is a bit of historical precedence for this.
Mm-hmm.
At times, in various cultures, like in China and Japan, the commoners were at one time or another, it was illegal for them to own weapons. So in order to defend themselves, this was another thing that kind of developed out of that, is using these martial arts styles. So it was a combination of things of religious beliefs and also out of necessity for without having regular weapons that they can own because they were outlawed from time to time. So there's a pretty good several paragraphs on that, and then it gets into the styles. And there's really two different types of styles. There's the common styles that are already known, and those are karate, kung fu, taekwondo, and jiu-jitsu.
Right.
And then you have custom styles. You could create your own style of martial art.
Okay.
Now, the rules for this. Now, let me get into custom styles first. I'll talk about the common styles. I'll get into custom styles. And there's a chart in the book where it gives the name, the number of attacks, the damage the martial arts style does, and it says armor class. And this is where I get a little confused when it talks about armor class. Is a measure of the degree of protection the character gains when using the style. Their protection comes from the character's training, may allow him to avoid, deflect, or withstand blows.
Right.
It says AC 6 for Kung Fu. Does that mean you add 6 to your armor class, or is your armor class 6 when you use this style?
I've always based it off of that was what your armor class started as.
Okay.
It sounds like it because they're not giving you a plus or a minus. They're not reading it like an adjustment, right?
Right. No.
So if you had karate style, your armor class naturally would be 8 minus any modifiers from like dex and stuff.
Right, like normal people would start with a 10, you'd start with an 8.
Okay. All right. Now that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And this is why we do this. We could talk about things for clarification.
Yeah.
Then it goes into the principal attack of the type of style, like karate is hand. And then it talks about special maneuvers. And there's a whole slew of different maneuvers that are associated with each type of style.
I'm sorry. Every time we start talking about martial arts, I can't stop thinking about Ross from Friends when he decided that he knew karate.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God.
You remember the one he was like, I know unagi.
Unagi, yeah.
And they're like, salmon spring roll. Oh, God. But I got a question on these. So we talked before about monks,
Right.
which coming out of the player's handbook. And there was a lot of question about some of the things that a monk could do, like deflecting missile attacks and having better armor class because of that. Does this get into the same territory? The same questions come up?
Yes, with the special maneuvers, yes, there are things that address that for the martial arts style, but not particular to monks per se.
But if somebody's doing these different martial arts in the book, do they get the same ability to, for example, deflect or to knock an arrow down in flight?
Yes,
Okay.
there are things like that.
Yeah.
And I'll get to that in a minute because there's a thing about creating a style, and I think this is very important when you have the custom styles. In the book, it really puts it in the hands of the DM, not the player, to create the style of martial arts
Right.
that you want to make. Doesn't mean that the player can't maybe have some say so, but it's, I guess, obviously up to DM's final discretion.
So maybe a player could come to the DM and say, look, I want to bring this style into the game. Can you set it up?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
And then you have the special maneuvers they can add to your special style that you want to make. And I like this. The special maneuvers are interesting. They're broken down in the various subtypes. There's kick, which is obviously you're kicking somebody. Lock, which is where you're gripping an opponent and not allowing them to attack you, which is a common thing in, like, for example, jiu-jitsu, which I learned a little bit about when I was in the Army.
Right.
There's movement, which is your control of your body position. There's push, strike, which is basically a major attack. Then there's throw, vital area, which is a precise strike. Basically, it's a strike on your body, like if you remember, what was it in Kill Bill, the 5-finger exploding heart technique?
Yeah.
Kind of like that. And then there's one like what you were talking about, weapon. This is where you how do you deal with fighting opponents with weapons? And one of them is, like you were talking about, weapon catch, where you can catch a weapon, and that could be a missile weapon.
So when they're saying weapon catch, that sounds more like any weapon. If you're swinging a sword or whatever.
Well, they do have missile deflection as one of the things under movement.
Yeah, yes, and that's under movement is missile
So
deflection.
weapon catch is more that kind of thing you see in a movie where they clasp their hands together and they catch the sword.
I'm sorry, I forget that missile deflection's under movement.
Did you see the Mythbusters where they tried doing that?
No, what happened?
Oh, they made... Because no, they did the missile deflect. They kind of got that, but the one where they tried to catch a sword between two hands, obviously they weren't going to just try to do it themselves. So they made their, what do they call it, ballistics gel that they used to make like the fake hands out of.
Yeah.
And if it had been a real hand, it would have been so nasty.
Like
It was-
slicing fingers off and stuff.
Oh, it's just I cringe even thinking about it. However, this is the game, so it's different. Games are more like movies than they are like Mythbusters.
Suspension of disbelief, right?
Yeah, it's a lot more fun to play a D&D game that plays out like Big Trouble in Little China than it is to play one that comes out like, Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Yeah, very much so. But there's when you're talking about that weapon one, the weapons special maneuvers. There's kind of an exception to that, which is steel cloth.
Yeah.
This is very interesting. With this maneuver, the character never need be without a weapon. Taking a 6 to 10 foot piece of cloth, the character whirls, snaps it tight, keeping it constant motion and giving a rigidity of a spear. Cloth is treated as a spear, except that it cannot be thrown.
It's like a wet towel, but more deadly.
Yeah. That's pretty cool, actually.
Huh.
And then you have mental and physical training for the different maneuvers. Now, I did find something under mental and physical training. Blind fighting. Remember we were talking about that?
Hey!
There's rules for blind sighting. Blind fighting. I was blindsided by the blind fighting. And
Tell us more.
Yes, I will. And it says that a character with blind fighting for under their special maneuver is only a -1 to hit when fighting in darkness or blinded or facing an invisible opponent. However, any of these combinations with a silent spell render the character effectively blind again. And this maneuver is constantly in effect. So once you have this maneuver, you're only -1 to hit when you're fighting invisible opponents or in darkness or blinded.
Wow.
So that's kind of interesting. So people looking for that rule, if you want, you can use the martial arts, or if you want to just lift the blind fighting skill out of there, you can.
All right, so break it down a little bit on the combat here, because I'm hearing the different things like the kicks, the holds, the grabs, the flips.
Well, really what
How does it play out?
Well, basically, when you look at the common martial arts styles, it's almost like any other attacks with weapons. You have number of attacks per round, the damage you do, and it really just depends on the type of maneuver that you're going to do, if you're going to do a special maneuver.
Okay.
And if you're going to do a special maneuver, I don't know if for special maneuvers if you could do the same number of attacks per round as your main attack is. Like for karate.
Yeah, you could. I don't see why not. We never.
Yeah. Like if you wanted to do 3, the strike. If you wanted to do 3 iron fists in a round, I guess you could, which is actually pretty nasty. Because if you read Iron Fist, it does 1 to 10 points of damage on each attack. So you have the potential of doing 30 points of damage with that one attack in a round.
Yeah, they also go as far as doing the how the weapon speed modifier were the original rules, and the armor class modifier. They even have that for the various kicks and punches too, if you want to get into all that.
Well, I got to assume that the weapon speed is going to be the fastest possible, right?
Yeah.
But what about the versus AC? How does it work out for that?
Well, each special maneuver has a hard or soft next to it, and then you would compare it to the chart, and that's how you would modify it versus the AC.
Well, the AC modifiers are always about the type of weapon. So, for example, that a sword can get through chainmail differently than a mace can, right?
Right.
Since you're using, I guess, your hands and your feet, you're never going to have a different type of hand. Wouldn't it always be like a club, like a blunt attack?
I guess with the different styles, there's different ways of hitting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they actually do have different stuff.
Yeah, because like under Strike, for example, there's one that's called Eagle Claw.
Yeah.
And with Eagle Claw...
I would require the players to make the claw of eagle with their hand as saying this.
The physical exercise and concentration character can summon immense crushing strength into his hand. This is nasty. On a successful to hit roll, he can shatter objects, crush metal items, and cause 3d10 points of damage on an attack. Yeah.
3d10.
3d10. And Eagle Claw is, it's under the Strike. And not all martial arts get these. I mean, it looks like
I'm
karate
assuming you have
does.
to raise up to a certain level as a character before you get this kind of stuff, right?
These special maneuvers, you have to learn each one.
Yeah.
as you go along. And
Yeah.
you have to, which goes on to the next thing, which actually a really good segue into learning martial arts. According to the rules, the martial arts is like any other proficiency. If you're using proficiency slots, they cost a proficiency slot per style.
Okay.
So, and they would, now it doesn't say
You mean per fighting style?
yeah.
Yeah.
So so if you picked one of the fighting styles and it's got like 4 different things, they're not 4 different proficiencies. Like just if the karate's got, a kick and a punch and a grab and all those kind of things, you don't learn each one of those movements as a separate proficiency. You learn karate as a proficiency.
After he's been studying with the master for a month, the character spends 1 proficiency slot and gains the basics of the style, the armor class, the number of attacks, and the damage. He does not gain any of the special maneuvers or weapons that may be taught by the style.
Okay.
So you get the
And
basics.
each special
of the
maneuver
style.
would cost another proficiency slot,
Would
right?
be various training, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's a good
Which
way to
gets in-
start preventing
Yeah.
the characters from getting too powerful with this stuff.
Yeah, so when you initially learn the martial art, like I'm using karate, for example, you learn the basics, which is number of attacks, damage, AC, and principal attack.
Uh-huh.
That's what you learn.
Yeah,
Now, to gain the special maneuvers, each one costs a proficiency slot.
yeah. To learn, so you got to spend proficiency slots to get each individual thing.
Now, are those non-weapon proficiency or are those weapon proficiency slots?
It just says additional proficiency slots.
It's got to be weapon proficiency.
That's
It's
what
got-
I'm thinking, too.
Because, this stuff you're describing
This is for
sounds
combat.
pretty powerful.
Yes, it can be. Especially when you're talking about the special maneuvers, absolutely. But when you're talking just the basic style, like under Kung Fu, yes, you get 2 attacks per round and a damage 1 to 6 points of damage for a hand attack. So when you get in those special maneuvers after you learn them, yeah, it could get pretty nasty.
Yeah, because otherwise, what about armor? Can you do any of these with armor on?
It would sound like you could. It doesn't say anywhere that, as far as I can tell, that you cannot do any of this without armor on.
How would you guys play it?
I would play the heavier the armor, you would not be able to do these special common sense plays into here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I can't see anyone doing a roundhouse groin kick.
For example, when we played,
It's not going to happen.
yeah,
You're not going to do it.
when we played with Joe and we played Oriental Adventures, when I was playing a samurai, I was only able to learn jujitsu because the samurai is all bulky and using the sword, and he uses his attacks to sway the people away from him so he could stab them as they're on the ground or whatever. So.
Yeah, even leather armor it's not just like wearing a leather jacket and a pair of Jim Morrison pants. That stuff is pretty serious. So, yeah, I don't think you should have any.
I think, yeah, depending on the type of armor, I would say, yeah, there might be some modifiers allowed.
Like maybe there's a couple of things, like you said, Vince, like, common sense.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple things maybe you could do. But, go watch a Tony Jaa movie sometime and try to imagine him wearing anything. It's just not gonna happen.
Well, look at the Bruce Lee movies. Every time he got into a fight, Bruce Lee ripped off almost all of his clothes.
Yeah, you got to do it. So I think even though it doesn't say that, I would definitely say that unless I'm not looking at all the different stuff because I don't actually own the book, but maybe a couple of basic punches or something might work at a reduced efficiency.
Now, Matt, our producer here, he did bring up a point that there are some things you could do in armor, like certain locks and chokes you could do. I could see some defensive stuff.
That's what jiu-jitsu comes into it, I would think.
Yes. Jiu-jitsu is basically a martial arts style where you use your opponent's momentum, or you're using the opponent against himself, basically.
Or what's that one that Seagal uses? Well, pretends to use.
Pistol?
Aikijitsu. That one.
Okay.
That one
Drunken
I could see.
Master?
No, he's not Drunken Master, Nick.
Hey, that's awesome.
He
Drunken
uses-
Master 2 is an awesome movie. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so there you go. Creating a new style. That would be an awesome style to create.
Drunken Master?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Drunken Master. I actually had a friend. He learned a style. It's called, I think it's called 5 Animal style.
Right.
And there's like tiger, monkey, just like the
Okay.
thing out of Kung Fu Panda. That's a real style.
All
apparently.
right.
Yeah, it's monkey, tiger, dragon,
This praying
Something
mantis.
ocelot. I don't know.
There's tons of them. Snake. Yeah.
So,
I could do panda.
yeah, is there one for sloth? Because I could probably do a sloth.
Yeah, I could do wombat.
Yeah, I got that one covered.
Crouching wombat.
Sleeping aardvark. I can handle that.
No,
So, all right. So here's one. Here's a
now
question
here's the.
for you.
Yeah, okay. You had a question.
All right. So you got a character who's using some of the martial arts fighting, and then the other guy decides to try to grapple him using the Dungeon Master Guide tables.
God.
How do you resolve it?
That's where you shoot the players.
No, that's where you sweep the leg.
Sweep the
Why
leg.
you
Sweep the
don't-
leg.
Why
I'm waiting
you don't
for
bring
that.
martial arts to a gunfight?
I guess you could play them like they're weapons.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Yes, I would throw up my hands in disgust. It's like,
Well, you know what I think you got to do is the next time your players come up against a vampire,
Vampire.
I think he should have some martial arts.
oh
I
my
think the
God.
vampire should know some martial arts.
Why not? Every vampire in Buffy the Vampire Slayer knows martial arts
That would
instantly.
be awesome.
Perfect.
a vampire that knows karate.
Yeah,
Oh,
I swear to God, that show, every time someone died and became a vampire, they automatically knew martial arts. Automatically, no matter what.
Yeah, because it's
Probably
a movie.
part of the the orientation kit that you get.
A Brazilian
You know, here-
jiu-jitsu
yeah.
black belt vampire? What?
Brazilian.
Oh, hey, now that would be. I want to see some from all the stuff you're saying. How about capoeira? Put you guys have you guys seen capoeira fighting?
No.
Chupacabra.
Oh. No, capoeira. It's the Brazilian martial art that was invented by slaves who were not allowed to they would have gotten in a lot of trouble if anybody had seen them training as fighters, right?
Now, I've
if
heard
they-
of the Brazilian jiu-jitsu or whatever.
Blanca
it is.
from
Well,
Street Fighter
if they were
2.
if they were out there,
Oh.
in the fields practicing fighting each other, somebody would have noticed it pretty quickly. So what they did was they invented a type of martial arts that looks like you're dancing.
I thought that
But-
was Savat.
I've never heard of that, but it's probably
Actually,
simple.
Actually, Savat is like a French style, from what I understand. It's a French martial art.
It could be really similar things. I
It's
don't
a
know.
French stick kicking style, like Matt. Matt knows all of this stuff.
Well, if you get
He's
a
the one
chance,
who's talking about Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt vampires now.
Well, he knows all this stuff because he was doing the mixed martial arts thing a while back, so he knew.
Oh, he was?
I thought he did some taping for that.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, look for a movie called Only the Strong. It's a movie from like the '90s that's got some capoeira in it. I'm sure there's a bunch more movies out there that feature it. It's
Octagon.
pretty neat to watch.
Chuck Norris in the Octagon. Great film.
Yeah.
Chuck Norris.
Chuck Norris
So,
is
all right.
awesome. Don't mess
So-
with the
so-
Chuck.
So you got these fighting styles. How about how you want to apply them to different monsters? Like, which ones are they going to work better and worse with? Obviously, humanoid.
I don't think
gonna work the same
jiu-jitsu
as
would
humans,
touch
right?
on a gelatinous cube.
No,
Just saying.
don't think that you can use the weight of a gelatinous cube against it. No. It's hard to get a grip.
I don't see anything mentioning about monsters actually using martial arts.
No, I'm saying using against the monster.
Oh, okay. against
Imagine a
them.
bunch of karate using orcs.
That's what I thought you meant, Jason.
Yeah, I want to see the gelatinous cube using Thai boxing.
Muay.
Yeah, sweep the leg. What leg?
Go balls that use taekwondo. That would be
You got a
awesome.
problem with that? Cobra Kai never dies.
Good day.
There is a studio here in Pennsylvania that's called Cobra Kai Karate.
Oh God.
It has the same
Sweep the
symbol.
leg.
Has the same symbol as the one from the movie too.
Oh yeah. So of these different styles, I mean, do any of the attacks require that it be a humanoid that you're going against? You know, because I would assume that some martial arts have to do with taking
It
advantage
doesn't say in the
of anatomical
rules.
knowledge, right?
And it doesn't say it in the rules. Like, obviously, like chokehold is not going to work on something like a flump.
Right.
Why you'd be choking a flump, I don't know, but I just threw that out there. But, but yeah, I mean, you would have to choke something that has a throat. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. You could use chokehold on a basilisk. Why not a dragon?
You could try doing
Well, there you
that.
go. So that's a perfect example. Is that if you're talking about a chokehold, you got to figure not only does it have to have a neck, but it's got to be a neck that you can get your arms around.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
I mean,
some common sense is going to have to apply here.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's got to be a really important thing. Is that if you're thinking about DMing martial art techniques in your game, you can't just let the player say, "Well, it says right here that I can do this technique, so therefore I can." You got to take a look at, well, what are you trying to use that technique against?
Right. And also later on, when you're talking about all these techniques and styles and stuff, that eventually the player who has all this martial arts styles want to improve it, and they're going to have to seek out a master, which is apparently not easy to do.
No.
You have to find a master, learn from them, and if you want to be a master yourself, could be considered a master of a style, you have to defeat the already reigning champion. That's where you get into the whole Kumite thing. So,
Okay.
Oh boy. There's not a Miyagi on every corner to help you.
no. Paint the fence. And he's not standing right there doing that.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
So basically, that's martial arts in a nutshell.
yeah, pretty much. So,
Jason, would you use it or not?
You know, I think the players that have a lot of fun with it. You know, I wouldn't want to see it getting widespread, and you'd have to come up with some way to balance it out so that it doesn't just become. You know, I would definitely make them take their armor off if they're going to do this. They're not going to be walking around in a full pack and doing all those kind of things. And if it does come in, because I think they would have a lot of fun with it, I would definitely introduce some kind of a lich who could do taekwondo.
oh my gosh. Like, liches aren't dangerous enough.
Well, hey, if the players are going to get it, then they're going to get it back at them.
Oh, I would totally see the big bad of the story at least using some martial arts style against them. Have to.
I'm just trying to think of, kobolds that know taekwondo. That would be that would be amazing.
Well, I feel like there's also a certain level of intelligence that's required to do some of this stuff, right?
Well, yeah.
Yeah. You ever watch the movie Kung Fu Hustle?
No.
There was no intelligence involved in that movie, so.
Yeah.
Nice, Matt. Crane kicking kobolds. I love it.
I like the flavor, though. I mean, I like the flavor of it. You know, if you're going to do sort of a like a Big Trouble in Little China kind of adventure, you
Now,
know,
here's an
that's
interesting
got magic and everything, right?
Here's an interesting thought. Now, like we were talking about monsters in these martial arts,
Yeah.
how about maybe a special monster martial arts style that's developed by intelligent monsters to use?
That only that kind of monster could use because it relies on having that many legs or whatever.
Yeah, maybe dragons have a special martial arts style. Just
That's
throw
what
that
they
out
need.
there. Like using all that tail lash and wing buffets and what have you.
Isn't that like Dragon Claw style Kung Fu or something? Or Matt, is there something like that? As Matt's there is
something. Keep furiously tight.
Yeah, but I think what you'll do is you'll come up against a tiger who knows some kind of martial arts, and it'll be called like person finger.
Pull my finger. No.
Yes, the deadliest of martial arts.
The touch of death, like when Bart Simpson on The Simpsons. Wah.
I think we beat this one to death. So,
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything to add on to this? Or if you've used martial arts in your game, or of people who have, or you just don't want to use it at all and you think it's crazy, let us know. And guess we'll move on to our next segment.
You think I'm mad?
Perhaps I am.
What are you, a wizard, a genius?
Darn. A perfectly good brain wasted.
Game mechanics.
Time for game mechanics. So we're going to go back to the Dungeon Master's Guide, and we're going to go pretty early in the book here to something that may be overlooked by a lot of people, and that is spying. So, we have so many opportunities for music in this show. I mean, we got Kung Fu Fighting, we got Spies Like Us. This could be a really good episode if we only had the rights.
Now, we could play like up to 20 seconds and we'd be okay.
Maybe, I don't know. So spying is something that I've always thought of this section as being part that fits more into the kind of wargaming side of D&D, the miniatures wargaming roots. It goes back closer to the chainmail stuff. Let's although I mean I could see how you might obviously want to use spying in the role-playing side of it, but the way this is laid out is more of a something happens, let's see if it succeeds. It's kind of close to the assassinations table in that sense. And it's laid out more to be about hiring a spy. So it's treating spies really as NPCs who are generally going to be assassins in order to do this. If you're sending the spy out on a mission, you have to determine the difficulty of the mission, first of all. So it's definitely not something that you're trying to role play out and think about everything that occurs. It's more like you're laying siege to a castle, let's say, or something like that. And you need to send somebody in to try and find out something about the layout of the castle inside, or anything like that. Or you want to send a spy to a neighboring country to bring back information about some things along the way,
like
about some of the political
or something like that.
in the castle, that type of stuff.
Okay.
So
you need to steal the Great MacGuffin.
Yeah, exactly. Once you've determined, so first thing you have to do is figure out just how difficult is this. So the simple mission is just something you're just trying to find out the state of defenses. You're just trying to go in, look around, not get detected as an interloper. That's a simple mission. It goes all the way up to an extraordinary difficult one, which is basically a very long, hazardous nature. You've got the spy has to actually basically go undercover and be accepted into the group and those types of
James Bond type stuff.
Exactly.
Okay.
Depending on the level of the assassin or the spy that you're sending out, it's a pretty basic approach as to how as to how likely they are to succeed. If you're talking about, let's put someone right in the middle here, like a 7th level assassin. A simple mission, going in and just doing a little reconnaissance, 80% chance of success. A really extraordinarily difficult one, only a 30% chance. Really, really wide difference. And all of this is also influenced by the amount of time that it's going to take to do it, because when they first go in, it's okay, it's perhaps one roll to do it, but the longer it's going to take, the more times you're going to have to roll, the higher the chance that they're going to be discovered is. Failure doesn't automatically mean that the spy is discovered and hanged at dawn. There's also a spy failure table, and it's a question of how bad was the failure. So if it's you're rolling a percentile, if it was a 0 to 35, you can still try again. You can actually the spy wasn't able to pull it off, but they weren't caught. They just failed at what they were trying to do. So you can try it again, but you're going to have to figure out again how long it'll take, and take a longer thing. The higher up you go, the next chance you could possibly be imprisoned. If they are really unlucky, they're caught in the act, they're imprisoned, and you never hear from them again. That's all you know.
That's not good.
Not good, but it gets worse. Because as the rolls go up, and once you get over an 81, the spy actually gets caught with proof of their activity, and they are tortured. And they either are just killed by the torture, or they reveal everything. Your plans have been compromised, or they even turn coat. And then you have the chance of the spy coming back to you and giving you false information and actually spying against you.
Yikes.
And the highest roll, anything of 96 to 100, the spy is killed, so actually caught and hanged at dawn. Or if there's counter spies, they can turn coat and be turned back against you. So none of these are really an opportunity for role playing the thing. You're not going to go in as a spy yourself and roll on that table to say, oh, well, I'm going up and I'm sitting at the king's table. Do they notice me? Let me roll and see if they do. The tables aren't really going to work for that. For that type of thing, you need to use a little bit more common sense, maybe use some of your thieving abilities, think about their charisma and their intelligence, perhaps roll some, increasingly high difficulty checks. This is more about, playing it like you're looking at a larger wargaming type of situation. So as such, I've never used it because I've never really played D&D in the chainmail wargaming type of style.
Or the political sense, maybe.
Yeah. I've never really played that side of things. Have you guys ever taken that approach?
I haven't myself, no.
I briefly touched upon this way back when I was playing original Dungeons and Dragons. We had higher level characters with strongholds and everything, so we did have a lot of sending in spies, and DM would roll for that, but they really didn't get any much more detail than that.
Yeah, so this is perfect for that kind of play. The question of what type of NPC is going to make a good spy to send in is a little bit looser, because basically what you're saying is you're hiring for an assassin. It's you're calling them a spy, but they're the characters that you're expecting to have those skills, and they're the ones that have the spying table. So you'd go with them.
Now, one thing I did find interesting about the spying stuff in the DMG is when you go to page 34 under hirelings,
they
talk about the spy. And I thought that was
as
really
a unique type of hireling, you mean?
Right, because it says under there, this is generally reserved for the assassin character class, but it says such activity, other types of characters can be paid to spy, but such activity must be at the discretion of the dungeon master.
Right, and they're never going to go above 8th level either.
Right. It gets into how you would handle another class besides an assassin playing spy, and like you said, they'll never get beyond 8th level as far as ability checks under the assassin spying table. So you could have a magic user as a spy.
Why not? Yeah.
Sure. I mean, when it gets into the details here, they talk about kind of convincing the character and offering him a certain sum, and it kind of feels more like if we go to modern spy games or spy novels or anything like that, it gets more into the developing an asset, rather than actually training a spy up from the beginning. So I'd actually mark them down a lot lower. You've got to think, how loyal is this person going to be? So maybe your charisma comes into it in terms of, are they really going to want to go all out for you? How good are they going to be at it? It seems like a desperation measure that you might want to try.
Right.
Or
and also on page 34, it's one of my favorite illustrations out of the DMG.
Oh, the mouse?
Yeah. The rat god there.
That's it. Yeah, they go in with like the Mickey Mouse
they're going,
ears
this
or whatever.
better work. One of my favorites.
Awesome. So yeah, so as far as the spying tables go and all those types of things, it's a great thing to use for NPCs if you need to have a little bit of political intrigue, or you just want to use it as a reconnaissance method. I think it's something to go good to. I know a lot of people don't use NPCs that extensively in their games, and these types of things I think are a good way to encourage you to think about how you can actually use hirelings and NPCs and sending others out to really do your stuff for you.
Yeah.
Sounds like a plan.
Well, then let's move on to our next room.
Creature, theater.
Today we got in Creature Feature Theater is, I was actually kind of taken aback by this. We're going to the Monster Manual 2.
Haha, I tricked you guys.
Ooh.
Yes, Monster Manual Part 2.
But dude.
And we are going to talk about the Mongrel Men.
I love this monster because it's just like it's not any particular race or bloodline. It's like a mixture of things.
Yeah, it's like a mix of everything: human, orc, kobold,
and it's not an evil creature too. You just love that flump, don't you?
No, I really don't.
Oh, it's.
I just like making fun of it.
This creature is like a misunderstood like creature. It's lawful.
Yeah.
It's lawful neutral and
Quasimodo.
Yeah, and to
Actually,
survive.
I do have an issue about the alignment.
Why is that?
Well, for everybody that's following in, it's page 92 on the Monster Manual too. It says lawful neutral.
Yeah.
I just don't see them as lawful neutral. I kind of see them just as neutral. So I just don't. I just can't really see him like that as a lawful neutral because, you know, I read what lawful neutral is about. I'm like, that just doesn't sound like they'd be like really strict in that sort of thing, following law. You know?
Well, they only.
Oh, what's your issue with it?
Well, I just see them as true neutral because it talks about how they've been. They're seldom welcome in lawful or good societies and usually abused or enslaved by chaotic and evil groups. Well, only leaves one, really, neutral. So, I don't know.
Because they pickpocket as well, but they had to do that to survive.
Yeah.
They have to do that to survive, though.
Well, yeah.
They're not doing it for financial gain. They're doing it to survive. So they're staying within the law. Pretty much to survive.
So, I mean, it's saying that they're seldom welcome in lawful or good societies, usually abused or enslaved. It's forced them to develop special skills for survival, and I think if I compare it to something, maybe compare it to any group of people who's been kind of shunned from society and forced to create their own ways of getting by. So maybe think of like the Rami. Is it Romani? They get called gypsies in Europe. And
the Romani,
in order,
yeah.
Romani. Thank you.
I think it's Romani. Yeah.
So they've had to develop a really strong set of code to live by within their own society in order to really keep it cohesive because they don't have a homeland, they don't have a place that they're easily accepted into other societies. So you could kind of say that it's a lawful group within their own society because they have to follow the traditions.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I'm rationalizing why they might be lawful here and why I would be okay with it. And if I'm going to take them as lawful, then the way I would read that is perhaps mongrel men have strong traditions within themselves so that they can maintain their survival in these difficult situations where they're hunted and chased and, oppressed by everybody else.
I guess that's a way of rationalizing it. Sure.
When I totally see this creature, I keep thinking of that creature from the Goonies.
Oh, Sloth?
Yeah, Sloth. I keep thinking of him for some reason.
Sloth loved Chunk.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
he was great.
So the mongrel men. So when are they going to show up in your game?
Well, didn't you find a place where they were, Nick?
Yeah, actually, they originally appeared in Module I-1, Dwellers of the Forbidden City. And there's actually a couple really cool sections in this module where they are featured. There's a whole section of the Forbidden City where they've created their own little area for themselves to survive in. And there's actually a pretty interesting section to where the player characters, if I can find it here real quick, where if they get into the main compound of the mongrel men, they might have to do a kind of a fight, a kind of a combat with the leader. And it's more like not necessarily, it's not a fight to the death, but it's more like a fight to see who's just the more powerful. And whoever, if I remember reading it, if the player characters win, they win the respect and trust of the mongrel men, which could be beneficial to the player characters in the long run. So
I could see
this
the players.
Might be a module for Blackstone's Vault to review.
Yeah.
Nice.
I could totally see a player stumbling into a mongrel man camp area. They surround the players, and then the players have to prove themselves, and they don't attack, and the mongrel men kind of like communicate how they don't want to be. They just want to be left alone.
Right.
It's a great test for your good characters.
Yes.
It's a great alignment test.
Oh yeah, because you see these mongrel men. They look, by their appearance, they don't look exactly very friendly. So.
Right. I mean, what the illustration here has him with a lobster claw for a hand, and he's got one cloven hoof and one regular, sort of like a rabbit's foot. Bit of everything.
Yeah. I just thought it was interesting about their mimicry ability. I thought was really neat that they can almost perfectly imitate the sound of any animal or monster.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really cool. As far as the sounds, that's a good way of if you have a group of these mongrel men, they can, mimic the sounds of like a whole flight of dragons coming your way. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like they would use those mimicries to try to keep people from coming to them. They'd use them to scare you off and make you not want to be there.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like a roar of a big lion or something like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's how I was kind of thinking about that camouflage ability, which I was a little confused at first because it takes them a while to do the camouflage, one turn per the camouflage himself.
And what are they doing exactly? Camouflaging with the available environment?
Yeah, it says when using the camouflage ability, mongrel men are able to hide themselves and their items with great skill. Normally,
because they've probably developed that survival skill.
Yeah.
Right. Normally, one turn is required for a mongrel man to camouflage himself, another creature, or an item. The chance of remaining unnoticed is 80% plus 1% for every turn spent preparing the camouflage after the first, to a maximum of 95.
Well, yeah, because he's sitting there prepping and slowly doing it. So, yeah, I can see that happening.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of cool.
I mean, they really come across to me as, kind of, I feel bad for these guys.
Yeah.
Aww.
Yeah.
All they want to do is be left alone. They don't want anybody to see what they look like, and they've got all these mimicries, to keep people, stay away, don't come after us. They can camouflage themselves.
Or at least try to befriend those that are near them,
You think they're going to try to befriend somebody?
Well, if you're like in the module here, if a player characters come across this mongrelman hideaway, if not befriend them, at least have the player characters prove that there's some people that they can at least trust. So they would have to do something to prove their trust to the mongrel man.
Now, if the mongrel man looks like that, what does the mongrel woman look like?
Probably the same thing.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
All right.
The cloven hoof is on the other side.
Oh, that's how you tell them apart. Okay.
There you go.
Right.
Right.
All right, so tell us how you use this creature. And write us in, rfistaff@gmail.com. Or you can call us, 570-865-4210. The Roll for Initiative hotline. And we'll be right back after this.
Blackstone's Vault.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Blackstone's Vault. I am your host, Blackstone, and this section will be covering Module I-6 Ravenloft by Tracy and Laura Hickman, published in 1983 by TSR Hobbies. And it's part of the I series, the intermediate series of modules. And their recommended levels for this module are levels 5 to 7. Now, about this adventure, in case you don't already know, is because this module's been around for quite some time and has built up quite a reputation, is the PCs are lured to the land of Barovia by a mysterious stranger who gives them an unusual note that they need to find somebody that's been lost. Now, once they enter the land of Barovia, the lands and the village that is also named Barovia, the PCs are essentially trapped because once they breathe in the fog that surrounds the land of Barovia, they cannot leave unless they choke and die. And the only way to stop this is if they kill the vampire Strahd von Zorovich, who is ruling over the lands with fear and horror over the people. Now, the PCs, over a course of time, will find out that there are certain things, certain items that might aid them in destroying the vampire Strahd. So if they play their cards right, and cards do play into this, they can defeat Strahd. Maybe. So let's talk about some of the NPCs that are involved. Of course, we have Strahd von Zorovich, who is very unusual in the fact that he is not only a vampire, but he's a vampire magic user. So he's extremely powerful. Extremely powerful. And he's cunning and devious. So not only do you have something on the top of him being just a regular vampire, regular being a very broad term here, he's a very powerful vampire. And he also has magic using abilities. So not only can he suck the life out of you, but he can cast fireballs and lightning bolts too. You also have the villager known Irina Kolyana, who apparently Strahd has fallen in love with. And that is a subplot to what is going on in this adventure, Ravenloft. And there's also another interesting character that you would meet in the gypsy camp. Yes, there's gypsies. Is Madame Eva. She's a gypsy woman. She's a fortune teller, and she reads the fortunes of the PCs, which is integral to the adventure, and I'll explain a little bit about that later. Now, some of the major encounters that you would have. Well, you have three basic areas: the land around Barovia, the village itself of Barovia, and Castle Ravenloft itself. So let's start with the lands around the village of Barovia. You have the road that leads into the village and the lands of Barovia. More importantly are the gates. Once you pass the gates, that's pretty much it for the player characters. They breathed in the fumes, the fog, and now they're pretty much trapped. And there's also another place called the Svalich Woods, where the PCs might find something that would give some indications how bad things are in this land and village. Basically a dead body. And on that dead body, they find what appears to be a note that might indicate to the player characters that they're not the only ones that have been lured in to be killed by Strahd. Now, let's go with the village of Barovia itself. There are several interesting encounter areas. One being the Blood of the Vine Tavern, where the player characters would most likely meet the brother or stepbrother of Irina Kolyana. His name's Ismark, and he seems to be a rather tight-lipped individual, but when talking about Irina, he comes clean about things and might know a little information about the vampire Strahd himself and might be quite useful to the players. You also have Mad Mary. When you go to her house, she has a daughter that has been missing, and the player characters might find her in the castle. You also have the Burgomaster's home, and once the PCs go into the Burgomaster's home, they might find something that's not so enjoyable when they find it. Basically, the Burgomaster is dead. So the plot thickens because it was the Burgomaster who sent them along to find the girl. And then you also have a church where there's one lone priest who was holding out against the evils that are surrounding him, and he prays every night that the wolves and the bats and other evil creatures that Strahd unleashes doesn't get around him. He's just holding out for basically his dear life, and he's probably, I would say, I would play it as if he's probably barely holding on to his own sanity. And where there's a church, there's also a graveyard. And let me tell you, you don't want to be in this graveyard late at night. And last but not least is the gypsy encampment, where you would meet the one fortune-telling gypsy. And I'll get a little bit more about that a little bit later, how the fortunes are played out in Ravenloft. But let's get on to the meat and potatoes. Castle Ravenloft itself. And what sort of encounters that you might have within here. You have so many different types of creatures. You have gargoyles, wraiths, there's an encounter with some witches, obviously zombies and skeletons. There is a werewolf. So we got the whole gambit running here. We got witches, we got werewolves, more vampires, as if one vampire isn't enough. Yes, Strahd's got friends. And special Strahd zombies. Now, these are interesting because the zombies that served Strahd were actually the warriors who used to help him when he was alive, and he's through dark magics that he can't even recall from the past are the animated corpses of these warriors. Now the thing is about these warriors is when the characters attack them after so much amount of damage, body part falls off or they fall down, but they reanimate. They have to be completely, totally destroyed in some fashion, either by fire or acid or what have you. So body parts will still attack when severed from a Strahd zombie. And you also have ghosts and specters. I believe there's a couple of iron golems in here as well. And it's an amazing assortment of creatures. Lots of undead, obviously. But a few other things that you would associate maybe with a gothic horror type setting. And of course, if you're lucky enough, get to the crypt of Strahd. Now, some of the good stuff of this module is the fortune cards, which in itself make the adventure replayable. It's different every time you play this adventure. Now, as I said before, there are several things that the adventuring party has, not necessarily all have to find, but would aid in destroying the vampire Strahd. There's a location of a holy symbol that is very special that could be used against Strahd. There's also his own, I guess you would call it, autobiography, the Tome of Strahd, which might aid the players in finding a weakness if they could find this tome. Also, you have the Sun Sword. Now, this actually takes a little bit of preparation in the DM's hand because this Sun Sword is actually in two parts. It's not the whole Sun Sword. It's part of the Sun Sword is in Barovia. The other part, either be it the hilt or the actual sword itself, is already in possession of one of the player characters. So if you're going to DM this module, you're going to have to do a little prep work, maybe in a previous adventure or somewhere, that they pick up a part of a sword which might give off a minor dwemer of some magic, so they might want to keep it. And then ultimately, the player characters will find out what Strahd's goal is through the fortune cards. Now, this is how the fortune cards actually kind of work. You take a regular deck of 52 cards, you remove all the 2, 4, 6, 8, and 9 cards, the jokers, from the deck. And then you're left with the remainders of the cards. You shuffle them. Now, whatever comes up either determines the place where a certain thing is found. There's also modifiers based on the suit of the card when it's drawn. And then a third table determines what Strahd's goals are. Now, to give you an example of how all this works, I randomly drew up some cards. And the first card, and this is, you could do this either before the game is played, so you have it as a DM when preparing this, and then present the cards when they do the fortune telling at the gypsy camp. So here are some of the cards I pulled. The first card determines where the holy symbol against Strahd would be. I pulled the 10 of diamonds. The 10 determines it's in the high tower room, and the suit diamond determines that the PCs gain a +1 bonus to hit while they're in the high tower room, but they get a penalty of 1 to their armor class. And there's some box text that you can read along with this when you find out what the cards are. And then the next one would be where the Tome of Strahd is. I pulled the 3. It's in his study. And I got diamonds again. So again, you get the +1 bonus to hit, but a -1 to the armor class. Then I find out where Strahd von Zarovich is actually found all the time. And I pulled the King of Hearts. And that means he's in the King's Audience Hall. And with Hearts, once they're in the Audience Hall, they get a +1 bonus to hit and a bonus of +1 to their armor class. Then I determined where the Sun Sword is, and I pulled the 5 of clubs, and that determines it's in the treasure room. Haha, big surprise. And clubs, they get a -1 to hit, but they gain a bonus of 1 to their armor class. And finally, what are Strahd's goals? And I got the Ace of Diamonds. That means Strahd wants the Sun Sword. And the suit doesn't really matter here. It's just the face value of the card. So, again, this is completely random every time you play this game, and it's this adventure, and it's really enjoyable in that respect. Another very unique feature of this module are the maps. The maps are, as far as I could determine, the first detailed maps in an adventure module where they are at a 2/3 angle, almost like a 3D type effect. It's very unique in that respect. I like that. So it's kind of interesting, but it can be a little bit hard to read if you're not too savvy on it. It could be a bit confusing. That's all I could say about that. You got to be very careful when reading the maps. You also might have to do a little mental juggling, like if you were looking at it straight up and down. Another interesting thing is, this could be a good or bad thing, is the players are trapped. They must defeat Strahd before they can leave Barovia. And then there's Strahd himself. Probably the most powerful adversary next to the Lich in Tomb of Horrors that the PCs would ever face. He's a very devious, very evil creature, but he has a somewhat of a tragic background that the characters might find out. Now some of what might be considered the not so good stuff. Like I said, the map can be a bit confusing because it's a different angle than what most people might be used to when looking at a map, but that can be easily overcome. There are some railroady type things in the adventure. The PCs just can't leave. If they try to leave, they'll choke and die because of the fog. So some player characters, some DMs might not like that. It's somewhat restricted in that respect. One of the things I've also noticed that the PCs are pretty much under constant attack and duress. Now, some DMs might like that. That's really going to keep their PCs on their toes, their players on their toes. But one of the things in here that, for example, is when they are spending any place for the night besides the castle itself, they are attacked nightly by direwolves and bats. And there's a chance that a direwolf might get inside where they're staying. And that happens every night. And lastly, Strahd, in my opinion, is way too powerful for 5th through 7th level characters. He's a vampire magic user. So what if you got the Sun Sword and the magic holy symbol, whatever? You still have to get to Strahd and kill him or destroy him. You still have to get past the gargoyles and the other vampires and the ghouls and zombies and skeletons and wraiths and whoever knows what else monsters are lurking with inside the castle before you even can find him, maybe. So, in my opinion, I think the module should be really for like 7 to 10, maybe around there. If you're talking 5th or 7th level, it would have to be a party of at least 8 to 10 player characters. I wouldn't go anything less than that. I just think Strahd is way too powerful, what's going on there. So, overall, in my opinion, it's a good module. It's very unique. There's a lot of unique things in here for the time when it came out. But I just think Strahd is way too overpowerful for the levels that are indicated. And also, obviously, this is a great module to run around Halloween season. Hands down, this is a great one for that time. Now, you can find it, obviously, in places like eBay or your local game conventions or some of the larger game conventions. It was also reprinted a couple of times. It was reprinted in the Silver Anniversary box set that came out in 1999. And also reprinted around the same time, if I recall, and it was revised for 2nd edition AD&D. And there's also a Hackmaster version called Robin Loft, if you can get your hands on that too. So there's several versions of it. The original, there's a couple of reprints. There's a Hackmaster version. So you're pretty safe in finding something. So overall, really cool module. I think you would enjoy it. Next module I hope to review would be Lost Caverns of Tharizdun. So that'll be coming soon, because this one was a special request by someone, so I'll be getting on Lost Caverns of Tharizdun real soon. So this is Blackstone signing off, saying, may all your hits be crits.
The Dragon's Horde.
Here we are in the Dragon's Horde, and today we're going to look at a treasure that is a little bit more utilitarian in nature, kind of following. Oh, I love it too. Well, following in the vein of some of our previous Dragon Hordes, where we've talked about magical items that can hold unlimited things or produce, fantastical things, both good and bad. We're talking about Bucknard's Everfull Purse. And Bucknard's Everfull Purse, I don't know much about. I always like it when we've got one of these magic items that's named after a character from, I'm assuming, from Gygax or Arneson's games.
Probably.
Yeah.
So I don't know the background on Bucknard, actually. I know that he was.
Either.
I know that he was a wizard. But beyond that, I just don't know. So maybe somebody can. Actually, you know what? I'm doing a little bit of. I'll admit it. I'm doing a little Wikipedia looking right now, and I'm seeing things in here that he was part of the Circle of Eight that Mordenkainen put together, and that he was his sister was slain by sons of Caius, the ones that we've talked about before. So I'm sure there's quite a lot to learn about Bucknard. But what we've got here from him is something that's very useful. It just looks like a small leather purse. I like that they call in here a magical poke. Just kind of reminding you that a poke, like what was it? A pig in a poke is actually like a pocket.
Yeah.
What it really does is it just makes sure that you've always got enough change. You've always got some walking around money.
Yeah.
Whenever you reach into the purse, it'll be full of coins, and you can pull out, enough to get you by. So it's going to contain, for some reason, 26 of whatever type of coin it is that we're talking about. So it'll either contain a mixture of silver, electrum, and gold pieces, copper, electrum, and platinum pieces, or copper, electrum pieces, and gems. Gems that aren't too expensive, 10 to 100 gold pieces. Mm-hmm. As long as you're not greedy, as long as you're just reaching in to get enough to pay the barman, to cover the inn, whatever it is, it'll continue to duplicate coins and to have them for you. But if you ever decide to just pour all the coins out and you leave it for more than a few minutes, the magic is lost. It's now really empty.
Yeah.
But, and here's the sentence that I think is a little bit open to interpretation by some constitutional scholars. Mm-hmm. It says, if totally emptied and left for more than a few minutes, the magic of the purse is lost. But if one of each type of coin is placed within the bag, the next morning, 26 of each applicable type will be found inside. So I guess they're saying that it loses the magic, but then you can make the magic come back if you wait overnight.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
So if you dump if you dump the thing out after you find it, and let's say after like 5 minutes you don't put a coin in, the Dweomer's gone. But if you put a 1 copper, 1 electrum, 1 platinum in there, like if it was for the right one, then you'll have 26 of each type.
So I think what you're saying is not only let's say we've got different ones you can roll for here. It's generally going to be there's 3 different types. The first 2 are fairly common. The last one is pretty uncommon. Yeah. The second type, like you were just saying, contains copper, electrum, and platinum.
Yeah, so I have a character who has that one.
Okay, great. So if you dump it all out and it loses its magic, and you try to put copper, silver, electrum, and platinum in, it's not going to work.
Not going to work. No.
It's got to be it's got to be one of each of the right kind.
Right. And remember, whenever you first find this thing, it's going to be full of the applicable type. So I remember when my character found his, it had 26 copper, 26 electrum, 26 platinum in there.
Okay.
So that hopefully is a hint, and when you try to identify the magic item, it's this type of person, we have to do that, and I have to do this.
So if you find a pouch or a purse with 26 each of 3 different kinds of coins, or one of them being gems, you could be pretty sure you got a Buck Nerds Everfull purse.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
But here's the thing. So it creates those each morning. So in the morning, it's got 26. It fills up to 26. So if you'd spent a few of them, it'll always fill it back up to exactly that number. Well, if you find it midday, let's say that you find this purse that another character had been carrying it and they've spent some of it, then you could definitely find one that had been depleted and just hadn't been refilled for the next day yet, and it could still be a Buck Nerds Everfull purse.
Yeah.
So you should always wait at least a day to see if it refills itself before you just toss it out or spend all the money in it and don't put anything back in. At least give it a day to find out if it refills itself.
That's why it's 26, because you leave one of each type in there. You don't take all 26 out.
Good point.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you don't – as long as you leave – that's the other thing. It says if it's totally emptied.
Yeah.
See, it gets so tricky here. If it's totally emptied, then the magic is lost, and you have to put one of each back in. But I think as long as you don't ever totally empty it, you don't have to leave one of each. You can empty it except for 1 coin, and it'll fill itself back up. It's just the magic has to stay active, and that's how you keep it active.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, the magic is lost until you put the coin back in.
Right. So, I mean, and it's not too big of a deal either way. I mean, it's not like you're losing a great treasure if you go for a day without this being filled. Basically, this is just supposed to, even as it says in there, add a little bit of spice to the game, allow your player to be able to go around and spend money without looking like he's...
Wait. What you talking about, Willis? How would you like, Jason, if you went to work every day, and then you went to buy lunch and there was money in your wallet? You went to buy dinner and there was money in your wallet. The next day you went to work, you didn't put any money in your wallet, and there was money in your wallet again. Wouldn't you be like, whoa, this is awesome, dude?
Yeah, that's why Buck Nerds Everfull purse is awesome.
Exactly. This is not something to be like, and thrown to the side.
That's a good point.
So, yeah.
I mean, because I know, I'm trying to remember which character I have has this, but it's that second type. Every day, he's got another 26 copper, electrum, and platinum coming to him. Every
the
single
platinum's
morning.
a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
Well, but no, if he takes it out.
Yeah, if he takes it out, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Of course. And we put it in the bag of holding.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, because every day you take out 25, and the next day you're going to get another 25 again.
Exactly.
Well, okay, so that's a good point. If you've got a character who is basically earning 25 platinum a day just for walking around, which is pretty hefty.
Yeah.
as a DM, are you going to let that go on forever?
I can't see why not, as long as they spend it.
I don't know. I think at some point, I mean, if they're actually taking that out and tossing it in the bag of holding every day, that character is getting pretty rich pretty quickly.
And people are going to start noticing this.
Well, that's where you start to have like hirelings and hangers-on and so on that want to ask for money from your player character.
Yeah, or I guess you could just, your character gets targeted for thievery. Somebody, some jealous NPC notices what it is, and you know, there's a chance.
You know
there.
what? I just noticed about this magic item.
What's that?
No matter what the 3 types, you always get electrum pieces. That just proves it right there that the electrum piece was Gary Gygax's favorite type of coin.
That proves it.
I know. I mean, every Gygax adventure, what is it written? There's like a whole bunch of electrum pieces, right?
I know, yeah.
So,
well, he loved the Electrum.
I guess.
Well, so there we have a great utilitarian, but also incredibly fun to have magical item. So if you come across a purse in the game, be attentive. It could be one of these.
I'd make the purse like really annoying, like loudly pink or something, so players will not want to have it out all the time.
It sounds like a slot machine paying out.
Yeah.
When we came back from Gen Con last year, one of our guys couldn't go, and so he asked us to pick up something for him.
Yeah.
So we got him a dice bag. It's bright pink with a unicorn, and it's jumping over a rainbow, and I think there's some fairies around it.
I was worried about you, Jason, when you bought that, and I saw you buy that. I'm like, okay.
Oh yeah, you saw.
I looked. That's why I looked at you. I'm like, Jason, and
he brings it to every game.
You just went. It's a gag gift. I went, okay.
Yeah, sure, gag gift. Yeah.
I just think if the thing when you put your coins in it too, it goes ding, just like a slot machine. Ding, 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 ding.
And too bad slot machines don't use coins anymore.
Yeah, we'll bring that back.
Yeah. So that's going to wrap up the show this week. Nice little interesting show about martial arts and sweeping the leg and spies like us.
Yeah, sweep the leg.
Sweep the leg, Cobra Kai never dies. I love watching the Karate Kid movie. It's the best. Anyway, so we'll be back next week with another show, and hopefully we'll have some more good, juicy bits of awesomeness.
Oh, and hey, everybody who's out on the East Coast, don't forget that Icon is coming up in just about 10 days, or less by the time you hear this show. So go to iconsf.org. And come on out. I'll be there. So come on out to Icon.
You're going to be sitting in the panel with Frank Menser, right?
Nice, absolutely.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. I know this weekend I got Mepicon, the local Pennsylvania convention going on.
Awesome.
So I'm going to go to that and play some games and buy some stuff. And
so everybody get over to Mepicon and say hi to Vince.
Yeah.
And I got nothing.
Aww. Well, you got Nothing. Oh, never mind. We got Gen Con coming up in 4 months now and counting.
Hey, I'm counting down. Don't forget to register for events like I did last year, forgetting to register for events. It's May 1st. Set it on your calendar so you don't miss out on all the first edition games.
Well, hopefully you'll get the email, unlike you who went to the spam folder.
Oh, I've got it. I've got a big sign on my wall that says May 1st. Don't forget, dummy.
like last year, you're like, oh, people seem to be registering. Why didn't I get to register? All right, so we'll get back to you next week. Keep it original, keep it old school, and sweep the leg.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Roll for initiative.